A life-threatening and potentially historic blizzard. Those are just some of the words used to describe a storm that swept across the northeastern U.S. It appears it was nowhere near as severe as predicted. Blizzard warnings for a number of states have been lifted and things are slowly getting back to normal. CCTV's Karina Huber joins us live from New York City. And Karina, it just didn't turn out to be, did it?
Elaine, no, it didn't. You might have remembered on Monday night that city officials and state officials across the northeastern United States were warning its citizens to get off the streets, head home, and hunker down to weather this storm. Many cities had shut down their public transit, including here in New York City, and were telling its citizens that they had to stay off the roads, cars as well. In all, 7 states had declared a state of emergency. Well, by Tuesday morning, it became clear that there were winners and losers in this storm, with some areas getting hard hit as predicted and others coming out relatively unscathed.
Massachusetts has been the hardest hit state in the first blizzard of 2015 that pummeled parts of New England. Some communities experienced up to 3 feet of snow and more than 70-mile-per-hour winds, which led to whiteout conditions. The island of Nantucket, roughly 30 miles south of Cape Cod, was virtually cut off. It lost power and phone service. Ferries to the mainland were suspended. In coastal towns, residents asked to be evacuated. There was flooding and worries about electrical fires. Other parts of the state also experienced power outages.
This is clearly a very big storm for most of Massachusetts, and I'm glad we had a little bit of advance warning to plan for it, and I think that's going to help us in terms of our ability to get out of it early and to make it possible for people to get back up and operating as soon as possible sometime tomorrow.
Maine, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island also got hit by the storm.
In New York City, the storm was underwhelming. Forecasters had predicted 3 feet of snow, but here in Central Park, there's less than a foot on the ground. Enough for tobogganing, but not enough to paralyze a city.
The New York travel ban has been lifted and public transit is back up and running. Forecasters admit they got it wrong when it comes to the Big Apple, and city and state officials were on the defensive for shutting down the city.
Would you rather be ahead of the action or behind? Would you rather be prepared or unprepared? Would you rather be safe or unsafe? My job as the leader is to make decisions, and I will always err on the side of safety and caution.
East of New York City, in Long Island, the situation was more drastic, with some areas hit by 2.5 feet of snow. Snow removal equipment was deployed from New York City to those areas. While the worst of the storm is over, the headache continues for the thousands of travelers stranded by the more than 7,000 flight cancellations caused by the blizzard.
Now, Elaine, the airline industry is expected to experience some losses from all these cancellations, but economists say that it won't impact their earnings too dramatically for this quarter. Elaine?
So, Karina, how did forecasters get it so wrong?
Well, to be fair, we have to say they did get it right in parts of the country, particularly the Massachusetts area, Rhode Island, and Maine. Where they didn't get it right was New York City. And the National Weather Agency is basically saying that the main problem was that perhaps they didn't communicate the range of options appropriately, that it couldn't. Basically, the language was a little too exaggerated, perhaps, and so they might change the language in the future. Also, the data that they relied on, there was several different models, and they're saying that the European model that they looked at was the inaccurate one. But also, they rely on 2 satellites that are about 10 years old, and perhaps with the new satellites that are coming out in 2016, they'll get higher resolution images and perhaps better predictions that will help us with future storms. Elaine?
All right, Karina Huber live for us in New York City.